Imagine watching a viral clip, shaky phone video, a punch thrown, someone on the ground. The comments all say the same thing. Open and shut case, lock him up. A week later you hear the verdict, not guilty. The internet explodes. The system is broken. But in that courtroom, 12 strangers saw something different. Doubt. Not certainty of innocence, but a gap between pretty sure and beyond a reasonable doubt. In this video, we're going inside that gap. We'll break down how defense attorneys take what looks obvious and slowly, methodically, turn it into uncertainty. We'll look at shaky eyewitnesses, misleading video, dodgy forensics, and even confessions that fall apart under scrutiny. By the end, you may not like every acquittal, but you'll understand how they happen and why the law is designed to make winning an obvious case much harder than most people think. To understand why obvious cases fall apart, you first have to understand the rules of the game. In criminal law, the prosecution carries the entire burden. They must prove every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. The defense doesn't have to prove innocence. They only need to show that certainty isn't justified. That's a massive difference, and it's where strategy lives. Throughout this video, we'll walk step by step through the main tools defense lawyers use to build that doubt: attacking evidence, reframing stories, exposing shortcuts in police work, and persuading jurors to slow down and question their own instincts. If you're interested in how trials really work, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell so you don't miss future breakdowns. And stay with me all the way to the end, because we'll finish with a concise checklist of the exact moves lawyers rely on when the whole world thinks the case is already over. Let's start with the foundation. What reasonable doubt actually means. Courts rarely define it with precision, but juries usually hear something like, a doubt based on reason and common sense, not mere speculation. It's not mathematical certainty, and it's not no doubt at all. Instead, jurors are asked, given the evidence, can I say I'm firmly convinced this person committed this exact crime in the way the law describes? Defense attorneys exploit that vagueness. They don't need to prove an alternate story is true, only that it could be true. Maybe the witness was mistaken. Maybe the video doesn't show what it seems. Maybe there's missing evidence the police never collected. Each maybe on its own might feel small, but layered together, they give jurors a legal and psychological path to say, I'm not comfortable sending someone to prison on this record. That hesitation is reasonable doubt in action. Now, let's talk about a powerful weapon, the presumption of innocence. It's not just a slogan, it's a legal shield. The defendant walks in cloaked in not guilty, and theoretically that never changes unless the prosecution strips it away with strong, credible evidence. Defense attorneys constantly remind jurors of this cloak. When a case looks obvious, that presumption is in danger before trial even starts. Headlines, mugshots, and viral clips create a mental shortcut. He looks guilty, so he probably is. The defense's job is to slow that thinking down. They highlight every safeguard: the high standard of proof, the requirement for unanimous verdicts, the consequences of a wrongful conviction. They frame the presumption not as technicality, but as the only barrier between an imperfect government and an innocent person's freedom. In a close case, that framing can transform a tentative maybe guilty into a firm not proven. Eyewitnesses feel incredibly persuasive to jurors, a living person pointing and saying, I saw him do it. But decades of research show human memory is fragile, especially under stress, poor lighting, or cross-racial identification. Defense attorneys turn that science into reasonable doubt. In cross-examination, they dissect tiny details. How far away were you? How long did you actually see the suspect? Were you focused on the weapon or the face? How many times have you discussed this with police or prosecutors? Each question isn't just about facts, it's about reliability. Then they bring in experts to explain memory distortion, lineup bias, and how confidence doesn't equal accuracy. By closing arguments, the lawyer isn't saying this witness is lying. Instead, they suggest a more subtle idea. This witness is doing their best, but they could be honestly wrong. That small shift from certainty to possibility is often all it takes. Video and audio recordings feel like the ultimate truth, but defense lawyers know they're just another piece of evidence, with angles, gaps, and flaws. A grainy security camera may miss the crucial moment before the punch. A body cam might start after key words are said. A clip on social media could be edited, cropped, or stripped of context. In court, the defense slows these recordings down, literally and figuratively. They freeze frames, zoom in on blind spots, and show how off-camera events could change everything. They highlight timestamps, missing minutes, strange jump cuts. They ask, who selected this clip? What's not shown? Were there better cameras that weren't collected? Then they turn to perception. Jurors are told what they're about to see, priming them to interpret it one way. A skilled defense attorney replays it with a new narrative. Watch again, but this time, focus on what you can't see. We love forensic science because it feels precise and neutral. DNA, fingerprints, ballistics. But in real trials, forensics can be limited, misinterpreted, or oversold. Defense attorneys attack three things: collection, testing, and conclusions. First, collection. They ask whether crime scenes were contaminated, gloves were changed, or evidence was properly sealed. Then testing. Was the lab accredited? Did technicians follow protocols? Are there missing notes? Even minor shortcuts can cast a shadow on the whole process. Finally, conclusions. Many forensic disciplines aren't as exact as television suggests. A partial fingerprint, consistent with the defendant, is not the same as a definitive match. Low-level DNA mixtures can point to multiple people. Defense experts walk jurors through error rates, alternative explanations, and cases where labs got it wrong before. The message isn't science is fake, it's science has limits. Once jurors see that, what once looked like ironclad proof becomes another piece of a much messier puzzle. Nothing sounds more damning than a confession until you learn how many false confessions have been documented, especially in high-pressure interrogations. Defense attorneys dig into the how of a confession, the length of questioning, promises made, threats implied, and the suspect's age, education, or mental state. In court, they play interrogation videos frame by frame, highlighting leading questions, interruptions, and times when officers feed details to the suspect, who later repeats them. They bring in experts on coercive tactics, sleep deprivation, and the psychology of compliance. A defense lawyer might argue, this isn't a person volunteering truth, this is a person trying to escape a situation they believe is inescapable. Crucially, they compare the confession to hard evidence. Does it match the physical facts, or are there glaring inconsistencies? When jurors see that the confession bends to fit police theory rather than predicting new, accurate details, its power evaporates and doubt takes its place. One of the defense's quietest but most devastating strategies is exposing police shortcuts. Jurors often start with a natural trust in law enforcement. The defense doesn't need to paint officers as villains. They just need to show they're human, rushed, biased, or tunnel-visioned. They focus on what wasn't done. Witnesses never interviewed, cameras never checked, tests never ordered. They highlight leads that were abandoned the moment a convenient suspect appeared. Cross-examination might sound like, you decided it was my client within 24 hours, correct? After that, every piece of evidence was collected to confirm that belief, not to challenge it. This theme of incomplete investigation is powerful. If jurors believe the police closed their minds early, they start wondering what they don't know, what other suspects, motives, or timelines were never explored. That invisible, unknowable evidence becomes its own form of doubt, lurking just outside the official file. Jury selection, voir dire, is where defense attorneys start shaping how obvious the case will feel. They're not trying to pick fans, they're trying to weed out people whose life experiences make them resistant to doubt. They listen for phrases like, "If they arrested him, he probably did something," or "I trust police to get it right." They probe attitudes about crime, race, neighborhoods, and prior experiences with the justice system. The goal isn't a jury that loves the defendant. It's a jury that will honestly wrestle with uncertainty instead of defaulting to guilt. Defense lawyers also begin teaching subtly during voir dire. They discuss the burden of proof, what beyond a reasonable doubt actually requires, and whether jurors can vote not guilty even if they have a gut feeling the defendant might have done it. By the time the first witness takes the stand, the defense has already planted the seeds that will grow into acquittal, or at least a hung jury. Cross-examination is where obvious often dies. A confident witness walks in. By the time they step down, jurors see cracks. Great defense lawyers don't argue. They surgically remove certainty using short, controlled questions. They lock witnesses into precise timelines, then introduce documents or prior statements that don't line up. They ask about things conveniently forgotten. They expose biases, deals for leniency, grudges, expectations of reward. Importantly, they avoid shouting matches. Calm, methodical questioning makes any wobble from the witness feel even larger. The best moments are small: the hesitant pause, the "I'm not sure," the admission that something could have happened differently. Jurors remember those. Later, during closing, the defense will replay them. "You saw it." On the most important questions, even the state's own witness could not give you certainty. In a case that once looked straightforward, that lingering uncertainty can be the difference between guilty and not guilty. When evidence stacks up, defense attorneys often shift from outright denial to narrative reframing. Instead of "he wasn't there," the story becomes "you don't know what really happened there." They concede small points to gain credibility. "Yes, my client was present. Yes, there was an argument," but contest the leap from tension to criminal intent. They offer alternative explanations consistent with the evidence: self-defense, accident, misidentification among a group, third-party guilt. Importantly, they don't have to prove these alternatives actually occurred. They only need to show they're reasonably possible. The defense also humanizes the defendant, not to excuse conduct, but to complicate it. They present family, work history, mental health, or trauma to encourage jurors to see a full person, not a headline. A monster is easy to convict. A flawed human in a chaotic moment is harder. That moral friction often translates into legal hesitation, the essence of reasonable doubt. All of this culminates in closing arguments where the defense weaves every small doubt into a single coherent theme. They walk jurors back through the state's story, pointing out each missing piece, each assumption, each witness who said "I think" instead of "I know." They reframe the question from "did he probably do it" to "has the state eliminated all reasonable alternatives?" They revisit the burden of proof, sometimes using visual metaphors, stacking folders to show how much evidence would be enough, then removing some to illustrate what's missing. They remind jurors of the stakes: years of freedom, a permanent label, balanced against the imperfections in the case. The final ask is precise. We're not asking you to declare him innocent. We're asking you to say the state has not met its burden. That distinction gives jurors permission to acquit without feeling they've guaranteed the defendant's moral purity, only that the evidence wasn't strong enough to condemn. Let's pull this together. Obvious cases often crumble because the legal system, at least in theory, is built on doubt, not vibes. Defense attorneys win by relentlessly enforcing that structure. They remind jurors that the presumption of innocence is real and that the burden of proof never shifts. They show how eyewitnesses can be sincerely mistaken, videos incomplete, forensics limited, and confessions contaminated. They expose investigative shortcuts, biased assumptions, and missing evidence. Through voir dire, cross-examination, and strategic storytelling, they transform a single towering narrative of guilt into a landscape of unanswered questions. Crucially, they don't have to answer those questions. They just have to make jurors aware they exist. When you understand that, High-profile acquittals look less like glitches and more like the predictable result of strict rules applied to messy human facts. You may disagree with particular outcomes, but you can see the logic behind them. If this breakdown changed how you see obvious cases, don't let it stop here. There's an entire world behind every verdict, strategies, mistakes, and human psychology colliding in real time. On this channel, we unpack those moments case by case so you can watch trials with a lawyer's eye instead of just a headline reaction. If you found this helpful, consider subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you don't miss future deep dives into reasonable doubt, famous acquittals, and even wrongful convictions. Drop a comment with a case you've always thought was a travesty of justice. We might dissect exactly how the defense built doubt there. And if you want to go deeper right now, cue up the next video on your screen. We'll walk through a real trial where a single line of cross-examination flipped the entire jury. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in that next breakdown.